It's official. Luigi Mangione faces an 11-count indictment. Some of the charges label him as a terrorist in the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The charges against Mangione are as follows. Number 1, murder in the first degree. Allegedly caused the death of Brian Thompson as part of an act of terrorism meant to intimidate or influence government policy. Number 2, murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism. Allegedly intended to intimidate the public or government through violence. Number 3, murder in the second degree. Allegedly caused the death of Brian Thompson with intent. Number 4, criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree. Possession of a loaded firearm with intent to use unlawfully. Number 5, criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree. Possession of a loaded firearm outside of a residence or place of business. Number 6, criminal possession of a weapon in the third degree. Allegedly possess an assault weapon. Number 7, criminal possession of a weapon in the third degree. Allegedly possess a firearm suppressor. Number 8, criminal possession of a weapon in the third degree. Allegedly possess a large capacity Glock magazine. Number 9, criminal possession of a weapon in the third degree. Allegedly possess a Magpul magazine. Number 10, criminal possession of a weapon in the fourth degree. Allegedly possess an unlicensed ghost gun. Number 11, criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree. Allegedly possess a forged New Jersey driver's license. The state does argue that Mangione's alleged actions qualify as terrorism because they were designed to intimidate or coerce the public and government. Critics, however, question this framing. When working class people face systemic exploitation without intervention, the state is silent. Yet when a corporate CEO is harmed, the full weight of the law comes crashing down. This leaves many of us wondering, who do they really work for? Who do they protect? And who the hell do they serve? New York prosecutors hope that this indictment will strengthen their case to extradite Mangione from his current location. Mangione, however, is reportedly prepared to fight this every step of the way. Now, this case will set precedent for how the ultra-wealthy are protected in the United States of America. The terrorism charges are insane, intended to paint a fed-up individual as a threat to national security rather than addressing the long-term grievances of Americans having to navigate the for-profit insurance industry. Shoot, after this case, the term eat the rich might land us on a terrorism watch list. This case is something we should all be following very closely. It will test the very limits of corporate power versus people power. With the case rapidly evolving, one thing is clear. This is more than just a trial. It's a referendum on whose interests the justice system truly serves. Luigi Mangione has officially been charged with murder as an act of terrorism in the shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. What's crazy to me is that when these same CEOs have their feet on our neck, denying our claims, passing policies that harm working class individuals, it's seen as good business practices. It's seen as him being a good businessman, guarding against unnecessary care. But when people have finally had enough of a system that continues to put its feet on our neck, we're terrorists. 41% of young people think that Luigi Mangione was justified in his shooting. And you know why? Because they've probably had very terrible experiences with the health insurance industry. When people get their claims denied, it's not a matter of, oh, let me go find some money to pay for it. It's a matter of they can't afford it. Okay, so what happens? They skip care, and skipping that care turns into a problem that is even more intense, and sometimes people die. Like, I don't think y'all are getting this. But maybe y'all are, and I'm preaching to the choir, but this person has been charged as a terrorist for shooting a CEO. Well, somebody think of the poor CEOs. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. When someone shoots a CEO, it's terrorism. When CEOs take advantage of us and exploit us, it's good business practices, and this is the country that we live in. I just finished reading TikTok's 50-page emergency application for injunction pending Supreme Court review, so you don't have to. Let's break down some key points, including why the government wants to ban TikTok in the first place, the lies the government has been spewing to manipulate the general public, and what TikTok thinks will inevitably happen. So point number 1, politicians want to ban TikTok because they claim it amplifies pro-Palestine content. Take Mitt Romney, for example. He's one of the loudest voices accusing TikTok of amplifying pro-Palestine content. He claimed that TikTok had an unusually high number of posts about Palestine. These are his own words. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts, end quote. So this isn't about national security then. It's about censoring people who speak out against oppression. Point number 2, politicians claim that TikTok is controlled by the Communist Party of China. This is another one of their dirty, gutter snipe lies. TikTok isn't owned by any member of the Chinese Communist Party. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, a Cayman Islands-based company, and it is primarily controlled by institutional investors. TikTok Inc., the company that operates in the United States, is independent. That's right. No one from mainland China owns TikTok. In fact, TikTok isn't even available in mainland China. It's used in over 170 countries worldwide, just not in China. And side note, I honestly wouldn't give a damn if Xi Jinping himself owned 100% of TikTok. Only an idiot would let the United States government tell them who their enemies are. But let's continue. Point number 3, TikTok stores user data in China. Surprise, surprise, another lie. TikTok's US recommendation engine is stored entirely on Oracle servers in the United States, with Oracle having full access to the platform's source code. The United States government has even implemented measures to ensure data security, with the NSA overseeing TikTok's source code and monitoring user data. And TikTok has spent over $2 billion on Project Texas, voluntarily securing U.S. data and preventing any so-called foreign interference. If national security was truly the issue, we'd be seeing evidence of this concern, not just baseless accusations, government, okay? Point 4, at least 17% of Americans rely on TikTok to stay updated on what's happening in the world. 17% of Americans get their news from TikTok. For millions, it's not just an app for entertainment. It's a primary source of news and communication. Banning TikTok would silence small businesses, activists, and everyday citizens who have no other platform to express themselves because they're all censored. Point 5, TikTok is being unfairly targeted. Why is Congress targeting TikTok specifically? The answer is simple. TikTok challenges the narrative. While other platforms like Meta pose greater security risks, TikTok has some of the best user protection practices in the industry. So why the focus on TikTok? It amplifies voices that some powerful figures don't want heard, like those supporting Palestine or the Black Lives Matter movement, speaking out on issues often ignored or distorted by mainstream media. This isn't about national security. It's about controlling speech and silencing alternative perspectives. The government doesn't like that we're rejecting the propaganda they feed to us by traditional media. The reality is that the government has made false claims throughout this entire process. They've told us that TikTok collects precise location information, but it doesn't. They falsely claim that TikTok's U.S. recommendation engine resides in China, and they've even suggested that U.S. user data is being sent to China to train TikTok's algorithm, which it's not. It's a lie. Point 6. TikTok is confident that it will prevail in court. The good news is that TikTok's legal team is confident in their chances, believing that they are likely to prevail if the Supreme Court steps in. If the Supreme Court denies relief, it would cause massive, irreparable injury, affecting over 170 million Americans who use the app each month. That's why Congress has enacted an unprecedented restriction on free speech, and why the battle for TikTok's survival isn't just about an app, it's about the future of digital expression in the United States. In the end, while lawmakers continue to hide behind national security rhetoric, the truth is clear. TikTok is a platform that they cannot control, and they're willing to go to extreme lengths to shut it down. But no matter what happens next, one thing is for certain: the truth will eventually come to light. New York State is considering a special hotline just for CEOs to report perceived threats. While everyday people face challenges like healthcare, housing, and safety, the government seems to be focusing its attention on the concerns of wealthy corporate leaders. This proposal follows the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, but it raises a question. Is this response too much for a one-time event? Governor Kathy Hochul recently met with corporate representatives to discuss how the government can use its resources, including Homeland Security and counterterrorism, to protect CEOs. This meeting, which included 175 corporate leaders, highlights how quickly the government moves when CEO safety is at risk. Yet, this is happening even though there is no history of widespread threats against CEOs. Meanwhile, there's no hotline for regular workers. There's no system to help people facing daily struggles such as financial insecurity or the constant fear of mass shootings in school. The government acts swiftly for CEOs, but seems to ignore the needs of everyday citizens. Ken Klippenstein points out that this focus on protecting CEOs is part of a larger pattern. The government treats the safety of corporate leaders as a top priority, while ordinary Americans are left to deal with their issues on our own. One example is a Florida mother of 3 who was charged with making threats after she became frustrated with an insurance claim denial. Though her comment was inappropriate, it is treated as a much bigger threat than the concerns of CEOs who have already have the resources to protect themselves. This situation reveals how the government is more focused on protecting powerful corporate figures than helping those in need. It sends a clear message. Politicians are prioritizing the rich and powerful over the people who need it the most. Ken Klippenstein continues to report on this growing trend, showing how government favoritism towards CEOs is deepening the divide between the powerful and everybody else. TikTok is in trouble and it's asking the Supreme Court for help. The popular app used by 170 million Americans could be banned in the U.S. if a new law takes effect on January 19th. Here's the deal. The United States government thinks TikTok, owned by a Chinese company called ByteDance, could be a security threat. They're worried that TikTok can gather too much user information, like where they live or what they message their friends. Some also worry that the app may secretly control what people see. So Congress passed a law in April saying TikTok's parent company had to sell it or face a ban. But TikTok isn't giving up without a fight. After a defeat in the appellate court, TikTok pivoted. On Monday, TikTok asked the Supreme Court to step in and stop the ban for now. TikTok says it's unfair and violates free speech. In simpler terms, TikTok says Americans should be able to choose for themselves if they want to use the app or not. The timing makes things extra complicated. The app could be banned one day before a new president takes office on January 20th. And guess what? President-elect Donald Trump, who once tried to ban TikTok back in 2020, now says says he actually wants to save it. Trump said on Monday that he has a warm spot in his heart for TikTok and promised to take a look at the ongoing situation. TikTok also warned that even shutting down for a short time would hurt them. The app could lose a third of its U.S. users. They say that the ban would also make it harder to keep getting cool content, advertisers, and new creators. So what happens if the Supreme Court says no? If the Supreme Court refuses to block the ban, TikTok will have to shut down in the United States unless it's sold. That means you won't be able to download the app from places like the Apple App Store or Google Play. If you already have TikTok, it might stop working over time because updates and services will be cut off. Basically, TikTok as we know it could disappear. TikTok fans are now waiting for the Supreme Court to decide. If they don't step in, the countdown to shut down will begin. TikTok is hoping for an answer from the court by January 6th. So what's next? No one knows for sure, but one thing is clear. TikTok isn't given up yet. So will the Supreme Court save TikTok, or will the January 19 deadline mark the end? President-elect Donald Trump has recently floated the idea of privatizing the United States Postal Service, and if that happens, it could spell big trouble for millions of Americans. Privatizing the USPS wouldn't just mean higher costs and worse service, it would put thousands of jobs at risk and hurt everybody, especially those in rural areas who rely on affordable mail delivery. The USPS is a public service designed to serve everyone, no matter where they live. It's not about making a profit, it's about making sure that every person in the country can receive and send mail, even if they live in the most remote corners of the United States. Private companies like FedEx and UPS have no interest in delivering to these areas unless it's profitable. If the USPS were privatized, many of these areas could lose reliable mail service or face prices that are way too high. But it's not just about the cost of postage. The USPS also provides good jobs for hundreds of thousands of workers, many of whom are in unions with fair pay and job security. These jobs are especially important for communities of color, like Black Americans, who have long had higher representation in the postal workforce than in other industries. If privatization happens, these workers' jobs could be replaced by low-wage, unstable jobs with no protections. And let's be honest, how many times have we heard our aunties and them tell us to get a job at the post office? They always talk about the benefits, the union protections, and the pension, highlighting just how valuable these jobs are to families in various communities. There's also the bigger economic picture to consider. Small businesses, especially in rural areas, rely on the USPS for affordable mail services. If these services were cut off or made too expensive, many small businesses could shut down and local economies could suffer. Many of these areas depend on the post office to ship medications and other essential items as well. Trump's plans to privatize the USPS is especially hypocritical. He claims to stand up for the working class, but privatizing the postal service would hurt workers and make it harder for people, especially people in rural areas, to get the services that they need. It's hard to imagine how cutting thousands of jobs and raising prices helps regular Americans. Instead of privatizing the postal service, we should be looking at ways to improve and expand it. We should be funding it more, not demanding a public service be profitable or else. Privatizing the USPS is a terrible idea that would hurt families, workers, and small businesses. We need to protect and expand the postal service, ensuring that it continues to serve the American people for generations to come. A devastating school shooting has left a community reeling after a 15-year-old student opened fire at her own school, killing a teacher and a fellow student while injuring 6 others. Police report that 2 of the injured victims remain in critical condition. In a heartbreaking and chilling detail, the first 911 call came from a second-grade student who used their phone to report the shooting. A second grader, barely old enough to grasp such horror, had to call for help. Authorities are still searching for a clear motive, but a manifesto allegedly belonging to the shooter has surfaced online. In it, the shooter expressed hateful views towards Black people, Indian people, and other groups. The document also revealed anger towards her father, stating that she acquired the weapon due to his stupidity. Social media photos from August show the shooter at a gun range with her father. Before her social media accounts were deleted, posts revealed disturbing content. One photo showed the shooter wearing combat boots and flashing a well-known white supremacist symbol. Other posts indicated that she admired prominent neo-Nazi figures. In the aftermath, some right-wing outlets have attempted to falsely claim that the shooter was transgender. This baseless and misleading narrative appears to be a deliberate effort to incite hatred against transgender people. Stop it. Monday's shooting at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin marks the 83rd school shooting in 2024. This grim milestone surpasses the total number of school shootings recorded in 2023, making it the highest in a single year since CNN began tracking such incidents in 2008. The tragedy leaves a school shattered, families grieving, and an urgent call for answers to prevent yet another senseless act of violence.